Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1549B, and today's date is April 19th, 2018, and the title of the episode is Operation Corner the Deep State, Event Possible. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Now, we're starting to see a lot of infighting between these deep state puppets. And we see already, and we talked about this before, about Comey's memo. And it looks like the Department of Justice is reportedly ready to hand over copies of the former FBI Director James Comey's memos detailing his interactions with Trump. Now remember, the memos were kept very private. And we need to remember that Comey actually passed the memos off to Columbia law professor Daniel Richman, and he leaked it to the New York Times. And they were asked for the memos, and they wouldn't hand them over. Now, the House Judiciary Committee, Chairman Bob Goodlatte, he was expected to subpoena the Department of Justice earlier this week in order to obtain the copies of the 7 memos. But we're seeing that they might be handing these over on their own. But Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein began to stall on the requested document delivery, telling lawmakers on Monday that Comey's memos may be related to an ongoing investigation and that they may report confidential presidential communications, meaning that congressional investigators have a legal duty to evaluate the consequences of providing access to them. And what he's doing is he's not protecting Trump. He's protecting what is in those memos, which shows Comey lied. And it basically opens up the case, and this is what they've been most worried about. This is why they've been protecting the memos and not allowing these to see the day of light. Now, there's a massive battle brewing between Comey and Andy McCabe, and we can see they're going back and forth, and they're basically calling each other liars, and it's just unbelievable how everyone is taking their own side, protecting themselves, and going after each other. Now, this is going to get a lot worse as time goes on, because as these cases move forward and these criminal investigations are brought to the forefront, these individuals are going to be put into the spotlight of what they have been doing and what crimes they have committed. And these individuals, they're either going to run or commit suicide, or they're going to point fingers all over the place. And I think in the beginning stages, they're going to start pointing fingers, which we can see right now. And when it gets too hot, I think they're going to make their next move. And we can see right now, everyone is getting really worried. And again, here we are. April showers could be many things. The bombing of Syria. April showers could be the investigation into all these different individuals. It's going to bring May flowers. So we need to remember this. Now, the National Guard update, where Trump basically sent the National Guard to all the border states except for California because California would not allow them in. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like Governor Jerry Brown says California has reached an agreement with Trump on the National Guard border mission. And Q has said that he had no choice. So remember his post. He said, Q 1072. Border states are very key, bigger than you can imagine. California is special. The public will learn. And we can see already we're starting to learn, and we're going to learn a lot more as information comes out. Now, Nikki Haley was kept in the dark about Russia completely, because she came out right after the Syrian strike saying that they're going to place sanctions on Russia. Now, she thought this is what we always do. We bomb, we place sanctions, we go after Russia. But Trump and Putin, through back channels, they were talking privately, and Nikki Haley didn't realize this. Now, let's read what the newspaper is reporting, because the corporate media is out there saying that, Trump went behind Nikki Haley's back, and they're making all this stuff up. Now, they wrote, Russia's leaders wanted to give President Trump another chance to make good on pledges to improve ties and avoid escalation, according to 4 people familiar with the matter. One said the Kremlin has ordered officials to curb their anti-U.S. rhetoric. Putin's decision explains why lawmakers Monday suddenly pulled a draft law that would have imposed sweeping counter-sanctions on U.S. companies, two of the people said. Now, when we look at this, we need to look at the second paragraph. Lawmakers Monday suddenly pulled. Monday, during the day, it says, which would be Sunday night in Washington, D.C. So by the looks of it, America and Russia engaged in a conversation, and Haley was not informed until after the fact. She had no clue that there were talks happening behind the scenes. So her deep state mind went right to sanctions, and she started spouting out sanctions all over the place. And this is why Trump said, no, there's not going to be any sanctions, because the deal was, behind the scenes, there was going to be no sanctions. Now, the U.S. nuclear submarine that helped the U.S., U.K., and French bomb Syria last week is no longer welcome near the waters of Italy's largest seaports. And this is coming from Naples mayor, and he wrote last week that they don't want the submarine there. So we can see already that certain countries are now taking sides. The EU, they're not together. The European nations are not together with the United States anymore. Now, this is one of the things that happened during the Syria bombing, where the European nations, they are divided. Now, something else very interesting happened. The Syrian military found 2 cruise missiles that did not explode during the U.S.-led missile strike. Both missiles were discovered to be relatively in good shape, and they were handed over to Russia. Now, the known missile types used included the Tomahawk. Now, out of the 100-something missiles that were fired, we know that Russia intercepted 70 or so missiles, which leaves 32 missiles that, hit their targets. Now, did all the missiles, now since these two, now this is kind of odd because there's 2 missiles that didn't explode. Out of all these, and we spend millions and millions of dollars, probably billions on these missiles, and for them not to work, that's kind of strange. So what if some of the missiles weren't even armed? Think about this for a second. Don't you think it's odd that these billion-dollar missile systems, that 2 of them, I could understand 1 maybe, but 2 didn't explode? Seems like something's going on here. We see already that the U.S. nuclear carrier Truman strike group has finally entered the Mediterranean 6 days after the strike. Now, once again, they're bringing these ships in, and I believe the next phase of all this is to bring the troops out of Syria and to get the deep state operatives in Iran. Are we going to war with Iran? No. That would be ridiculous, because if we were going to go to war, we would have gone to war already in North Korea, in Syria, with Russia. But you can see by the actions of Trump, he's not looking for a war. The mission that he's talking about is removing the deep state, is removing the Islamic State. That is the mission. It's to corner the deep state and make them squirm. Expose where the terrorist groups are, where they're going to push their offensive. They're trying to find all of this out and expose all this information. Now, another interesting thing is there are about 150 Islamic State victims uncovered in Raqqa. And we need to remember that the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, Al-Sham, moderate rebels, Syrian Democratic Forces, they're all one and the same. They're all intertwined. They go back and forth to different groups. And this shows you that these people have been tortured. These people have been thrown into mass graves. And for anyone to say, oh, it was Assad that is torturing people, well, let's look at this. This is the terrorist group. And if you listen to the reports from the people, once these towns and cities are liberated from the terrorist groups, the people tell their stories of how hard it was, how horrible it was living with terrorist groups. They were scared every day of being tortured or killed. So this is where the UN should be looking. This is where the United States should be looking now, even though the deep state, controls, pays for, supports all these terrorist groups because they're paid mercenary army. Now, very interestingly, and maybe this is a coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidences, chlorine containers from Germany and smoke bombs from Salisbury are found in Syria. Now let's connect some of these dots. Salisbury, the Skripal poisoning, and Syria chemical weapons hoax points to NATO collusion. Now, the story gets stranger. Russia has revealed to the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, the OPCW, that they gave proof that the United States had a patent on Novichok, which was filed in 2015. And the story gets even better. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova stated during a Thursday press conference that containers filled with chlorine from Germany and smoke bombs manufactured in the United Kingdom city of Salisbury were found in the East Ghouta region of Damascus, the location of the alleged chemical attack by Assad, which resulted in the launch of these missiles on all of these targets. And we know that Syria and Russia found a chemical weapons factory in Duma. They found tunnel systems, hundreds of tunnel systems, which ran all under these cities and connecting the towns so they can move chemical weapons back and forth. So the entire story is completely falling apart. And more evidence is coming out showing that these countries are supplying the terrorist group with the weapons, the chemicals they need to push their agenda. You think this is why we're seeing chlorine gas attacks? Most likely, and it's funny how nobody brings it up. Nikki Haley doesn't bring it up. The corporate media doesn't bring it up. That maybe the terrorists, and they are called terrorists for a reason, maybe they're the ones who are torturing, gassing the people of Syria. Even the people of Syria are saying it's the terrorists, it's not Assad. So we can see right now their entire narrative is falling apart. Now, we can see that McMaster's, and Q posted something about McMaster's where his father died under suspicious circumstances, and McMaster's is part of the deep state. And Q is saying that McMaster's lost the ear of Trump. Now remember, there were deep state operatives in the White House to direct Trump to do certain things. They were there to control him. McMaster's was one of them. And you can see during the North Korea crisis, McMaster's was continually talking about invasion, having a plan. This is how many troops are going to be lost. We're getting ready. Any day we're going in there. Because he was trying to convince Trump, and he thought he had Trump convinced, and the opposite was happening. And now his father passed away, and it's from blunt impact trauma to the head. Now, some people are saying that he fell, hit his head. Others are saying that this was a hit because McMaster's didn't do his job. If you fail at your job in the deep state, well, guess what? Bad things happen. Now, why didn't they hit McMaster's? Why didn't they remove him? Well, that would have been a big story, and I think they were sending a message to him because they might need him later on for something else. Now, I want to go back to Q's post about the threat is real, war is real, good versus evil is real, think State of the Union, free, coincidence, Delta engine fire, coincidence, how rare are engine fires, think logically. And he was also talking about the Texas bombs, new booms, and that they were going to try to pin all of this on Q. Now, all of these things that are happening right now are messages, and this is the shadow war that's going on behind the scenes. And they're getting ready to do something, an event that is very, very big, where they're going to try to link this to Q. And they're saying that this is going to happen in Texas. Now, there is dynamite that is missing from Pennsylvania. People are theorizing that maybe these sticks of dynamite are going to be used for this. We don't have confirmation of this, but it is a possibility, or they might be doing something else that's completely different. But we know that there is a false flag headed our way, and they're going to make it look like this was because of Q. He orchestrated it, and everyone that is following Q is responsible for it. Because what are they trying to do? They're trying to shut down this communication. They're trying to stop the truth from coming out. The truth is their biggest enemy, because truth has the facts. You can lie all you want, but the truth will stand proud. You can't do anything with the truth. That's the biggest problem, because all you have to do is show a couple of facts and say this is true. Propaganda melts away around it, and they know this. And the only way they can stop people from telling the truth is to censor them, to shut them down. This is why they've been censoring and shutting down people's channels, censoring them on Facebook, censoring them on Twitter, because this is the only way they know how to shut people up, basically. Because how else do they prove their propaganda if other people are telling the truth? And once there's facts behind of it that can back all of this up, the propaganda, well, it just disappears, and people start to realize, wow, this is all propaganda. We've been lied to. So we can expect something pretty darn huge headed our way, and most likely it's going to happen in the region of Texas, and Q is actually warning us that this is about to happen. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.